Hello, happy Tuesday. Welcome back to this channel. I told y'all yesterday I would be back with some stuff today. And yes, we have responses already from the Wayfarer people, so we are just going to dive right into that, okay? Grab your lip gloss. The Wayfarer people have spoken, and it's kind of reiterating all the things that we've been saying here on this channel. So they're clocking it, and they are right on point, and we're going to read these motions straight away. There's one reply for Blake, her trying to get Brian Freeman off the case and wanting sanctions on him for speaking to the press. That's the longest one, but there is a very short response to Miss Isabela Ferrer, as well as Stephanie motherfucking Jones has joined again, and she's just like, exhausting at this point. And yeah, we're just gonna go right into it. So if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's go. You are in frame with Mandy Magnan. Now, I am showing up like this today, au natural, and I'm kind of okay with it, which is strange because me, like a year ago, would never be able to show up on camera with no makeup, but I have a date tonight, a little dinner date. It's a first date, and I just wanted my makeup to be fresh, and I am okay just showing up like this. And also, sometimes when I wear too much makeup all the time, I have very sensitive skin, so as you can see, I'm getting kind of like redness and rashes around my eyes, which happens. So I just wanted my skin to like breathe for the day. And yeah, I'm kind of like okay showing up like this now, showing up however I choose to show up. And that is kind of like pat myself on the back a little bit for being that courageous, because as I said before, I would never be able to show up on camera just the way I am. I would have to like always be like camera ready and like hair and makeup done. And yeah, so I'm just like extending myself a little bit of grace and just acknowledging like how far I've come with truly being okay with who I am. Now, don't get me wrong, girlies. I love makeup. I love dressing up. I love makeup. I love doing my hair, lingerie, lip gloss, all of that. But then some days, you know, it's okay to also just love yourself in your natural state of being. So even before I sat down to make this video, I was like, oh, maybe I should get ready and do this and do that. And I was like, I am ready. You know, I am here. So anyway, that's my spiel for that. When we get into the It Ends With Us stuff, all I want to say is, I mean, I went on a rant yesterday, y'all. I was in my feelings. I was fired up yesterday with the absolute ridiculous letter motioned by Isabela Ferrer's attorneys. I thought it was just such a blatant attack on Justin Baldoni, and it was just insane, using all the buzzwords, all the trigger words, you know, harasser, abuser, extortion, da 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 da. My gosh, you know what I mean? Like, whoa, you're not the victim, Isabela. You're being subpoenaed for a reason. Blake Lively brought you into this. Like, you know, but I think what should be sanctionable is these people using the courts and filing dockets for sanctions that are not sanctionable. I think every time someone brings up a sanction, if it turns out that it is not sanctioned, they should be sanctioned for it, because the literal abuse coming from Blake Lively and her team, and Isabela Ferrer now has entered the chat, is just like, come on, it's projection. Every time the Wayfarer actually files an appropriate document in the court, oh my God, it's for PR. Oh my God, they're furthering the abuse. Oh my God, it's the smear campaign. When in reality, all they're doing is trying to defend themselves and fight the case. So get over it. Like, oh my gosh. But without any further ado, what we're going to do is jump in straight away and go over these three documents. First, I just want to bring up Stephanie Jones's little thing. It'll be real quick, guys. Then we're going to talk about the letter filed against Isabela Ferrer about the freaking subpoena. Like, of course she's going to get subpoenaed. Like, this is so crazy. And then we're going to go into the letter response that we have from the Wayfarer people on Blake Lively's little letter trying to remove Brian Freeman from the case and trying to, like, sanction him for speaking to the press. My gosh. But the Wayfarer people are listening and they are fighting back. And if there's one person right now that I know that is walking around her house, pulling out her hair and screaming into the sky, is Blake Lively, because dang, they went there and they went there good. Let's go. I literally titled this document when I downloaded it saying, Jones, I'm here, because this is just like her doing like a friendly reminder, like, hey guys, I'm here, please, like whatever. So this is just Stephanie Jones. It's a notice of third-party defendant's motion to dismiss. She's already filed the motion, but I guess she just wanted like a reminder to the courts, like, hey, please take notice that third-party defendant Jonesworks hereby moves to dismiss defendant Jennifer Abel's amended third-party complaint seeking indemnification filed on August 13th with prejudice and without leave to amend. In support of this motion, Jonesworks respectfully relies upon its memorandum of law dated May 12th. So she filed this May 12th. Abel's come back and the judge still hasn't done anything. So I guess Jones is kind of like, hey, since Isabela Ferrer brought up indemnification, I'm here too. Can you like dismiss me? Because what's happening is Jennifer Abel is like, yo, I worked for Jonesworks. She was on the case. So if I'm here, guess what? My employer is going to be here too because she was part of it. So we'll see if the judge finally is going to get around to this. I truly think that we are all here today because of Stephanie motherfucking Jones, and I will say that with my full chest and stand 10 toes down on it. Okay, we are here because of her. Everything that's happened is because of Stephanie Jones accepting the sham subpoena for Van Zandt. If you remember, and y'all, I know we don't need a reminder of that, but we need to keep saying it. Van Zandt, Van Zandt, Van Zandt. It was a sham lawsuit that got that fake subpoena that was served to Stephanie Jones, who just handed over all the communications, everything that Blake Lively wanted. And that was after she had already told Leslie Sloan that she has some tea for her. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Because Leslie Sloan called Melissa Nathan that day and was like, hey, I have all your texts. Be prepared to be sued. So, like, what? Anyway, Jones, we'll see if you're in this or not in this and if the judge has anything to say. But it's clocked. It's noted. You're here. Yes, you really want to get out of this thing. You know, the thing that you started. So weird. Kevin Fritz, the man that he is, the attorney and partner over there at Meester, Sidling, and Fing, who is also representing Justin Baldoni, Jamie He, Steve Soritz, collectively the Wayfarer parties, and all of them. The man that he is, he took everything that I had to say yesterday and summed it up in a really nice professional letter. I know I went hard yesterday at these women, at Blake Lively and Isabela Ferrer, but I mean, y'all read the letter with me. It was riddled in error. So many buzzwords. It was a blatant attack on Justin Baldoni. It was all cray, 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 cray. And now I'm hearing people are speculating now. There's rumors that Isabela Ferrer is going to be next to sue Justin Baldoni. I don't know. It's just a rumor in the rumor mill, so please don't take it and run with it or whatever. But if there is any evidence or proof of that, it might be their next move. We'll see. And now I've also heard that Isabela Ferrer's mom is actually a lawyer. So I'm looking into that as well. But right now there is no lawsuit from Isabela Ferrer, but she's running around with Blake Lively. You know what I'm saying? So who knows? I don't know what she would sue him for other than she's trying to blame him, I guess, for like ruining her career. She's an beautiful, up-and-coming talented actress. We'll see if that rumor has any legs on in the next couple of days, but for right now, that's kind of like something I've been hearing. So this is the letter from Kevin Fritz, and when I was reading this, I was like, yes, you go, because it's just like echoes again everything that we said yesterday when we read Isabela's embarrassing letter. But here we go. This is it. Get ready. It's only 2 pages and it's right to the point. They are not messing around. There is no shenanigans in this one. Kevin Fritz is like, bam, 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 bam. Your lawyer's shady. Y'all are crazy. This doesn't make any sense. Okay, so pretty much to sum it up, but let's just read it here, okay? Dear Judge Lyman, as counsel for the Wayfarer Studios LLC, Justin Baldoni, Jamie He, Steve Soritz, It Ends With Us Movie LLC, Melissa Nathan, the Agency Group LLC, and Jennifer Abel, collectively, the Wayfarer parties. We write in response to Isabela Ferrer's opposition to the Wayfarer parties' motion to serve her by alternate means for the pendency of this action. The opposition is primarily an inappropriate attack upon Justin Baldoni and his counsel. in violation of the order dated August 8th. Exactly. Y'all remember when the judge put in that letter, right? Which we'll take a quick look at maybe again. But that letter saying to have some respect, everyone thought that was just about Perez Hilton. But the judge was like to everybody, chill, hold the phone, calm down, right? And they literally broke that because yesterday it was just a blatant attack on justice. It was this letter filed by Isabela Ferrer was so inappropriate and had no room in this court, because if you get a subpoena, you have two things. You accept the subpoena and then you file to have it quashed, which is what we've seen from a lot of content creators. You've seen firsthand motions to have it quashed, or you accept it and then you have meet and confers and try to like narrow the scope, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You can't just run from it, okay? Like, you have to comply some way, somehow, okay? Anyway, what they're saying is it was a blatant and inappropriate attack on Mr. Baldoni and his counsel, and it goes against the order dated on August 8th from the judge relating to matters not before the court. Example, indemnification, right? They're already mediating indemnification somewhere else with the jams company, so like, why is he so worried about bringing that here? It had nothing to do with this court. Judge Lyman can't rule on the indemnification, which is what they kept talking about over and over and over. And irrelevant to whether Miss Ferrer should be served via alternate means. Miss Ferrer played the role of young Lily Bloom in the film It Ends With Us. After Miss Ferrer completed her work on the film, she expressed her gratitude to Mr. Baldoni, stating that she had an incredible experience and praised him for creating a comfortable, safe space for her. Rule 26A1 requires parties to disclose the identity of each individual likely to have discoverable information, along with the subjects of that information, that the discovery party may use to support its claims or defenses. According to Ms. Lively's amended initial disclosures, redacted. Therefore, Ms. Lively identified, redacted. In terms of an address, Ms. Lively's amended initial disclosures identified redacted. So they're like, and they put in an exhibit Ms. Lively's initial disclosures, but it's under seal, so we won't be able to see it. But they're saying right here, Miss Lively, Blake Lively, Snaky Snake Lively is the one that brought Isabela Ferrer in, which we all knew. Which everyone knows. Everybody, even Isabela Ferrer knows. She even said it in her letter that she was served a subpoena in February, and she complied. So why isn't she complying to this one? It's just like, doesn't make sense. In February 2025, Miss Lively issued a subpoena to Miss Ferrer, who was represented by Mr. Michelman. Presumably, Mr. Michelman accepted service of the subpoena on Miss Ferrer's behalf without objection. In July 2025, the Wayfarer party subpoenaed Ms. Ferrer for documents that she either neglected to produce or were not requested by Ms. Lively's subpoena. The Wayfarer parties twice requested that Mr. Michelin accept service of their subpoena, a common professional courtesy that Mr. Michelin likely granted to Ms. Lively's counsel in connection with her subpoena. Mr. Michelin ignored the Wayfarer party's request. Instead, Mr. Michelin prepared and filed a robust opposition to the motion for alternate service, most of which does not pertain to service, without explaining why he refused to accept service of the Wayfarer party's subpoena, or why his client is so reticent to testify. Mr. Michelin seems more focused on It Ends With Us movie's purported contractual obligations to indemnify Ms. Ferrer and cover his fees. Ironically, Mr. Michelin's actions have unnecessarily increased those fees by creating issues where none should exist. Right, so why is it like... Exactly. Him filing this letter and working on this letter, which looks like maybe he wrote it at 2 a.m. after having a couple of bevies and a gummy, because it was like riddled with so many mistakes. Like, did not one person proofread it? You're creating problems where problems don't exist. All you had to do was either accept service or not accept service, period. It's so bizarre to even just write that letter instead, because You could have just accepted service and then filed motions to quash it. Like, it's just very confusing. Also, we went over all of the emails that were in their attachment in yesterday's video, and it seemed like Wayfarer was like complying and working and having meeting confers and saying like, yes, we will indemnify. Of course, we're here for you, but we need to work out the logistics and da-da-da-da. It seemed like they were really trying to work with her, and then her lawyer was the one that just started ignoring their emails. So it doesn't work in their favor. Just like Blake Lively putting out all of those text exchange and email exchanges doesn't work in her favor, because it shows Justin being abused and literally him saying like, I need prayers. My film is being held hostage. With respect to service, Ms. Ferrer's opposition suggests that the Wayfarer parties were not diligent in their efforts to serve her, but should have reached out to Ms. Ferrer's talent agent or conducted a skip trace. Naturally, we deemed Ms. Ferrer's counsel and not her talent agency as the appropriate person with whom to communicate concerning the subpoena. Right, wouldn't you rather your attorney who's been working for you accept service instead of going to your talent agent? I would hate it if my managers and my agent started getting legal papers and stuff like that for me. Like, embarrassing. Let me just handle it with my people, with my lawyers. That's a whole different business. Like, I want my agent to be working to get me gigs, auditions, contracts, etc. Like, I don't need you working on this. Right now, obviously, I have an attorney. So you would naturally just go to their attorney, which they were doing. It was the attorney that started ignoring them. As for the latter, we assure the court that the two addresses at which service of the subpoena was attempted were not derived out of thin air. We are happy to share the results of our due diligence with the court, albeit that seems unnecessary given that Ms. Ferrer has counsel who has now appeared. Right, so what are we here for? Because he's here. Instead of him filing that letter, he could have just accepted service. It was so baloney bonkers nuts, like, oh my gosh. The opposition alleges that in attempting personal service after her lawyer refused to accept service on her behalf, Mr. Baldoni is harassing Ms. Ferrer and attempting to draw her deeper into litigation and disputes that she has done her best to avoid. It was not the Wayfarer parties who first subpoenaed Ms. Ferrer, it was Ms. Lively. And again, Mr. Michelin Man appears to have accepted service of her subpoena without objection. Ms. Lively should not be permitted to obtain discovery from Ms. Ferrer, while Ms. Ferrer and her counsel frustrate all effort by the Wayfarer parties to obtain the discovery critical to the preparation of their defense. Given the circumstances, this is important, the Wayfarer parties are willing to stipulate that none of the parties will use any communications to, from, or concerning Ms. Ferrer or any testimony from her in any manner in this action. That stipulation will satisfy Ms. Ferrer's apparent desire to avoid involvement in the litigation and trial. If the other parties decline to enter into such a stipulation and Ms. Ferrer and her counsel continue to resist service, the counsel should enter an order excluding Ms. Ferrer as a witness and excluding the use of any communication to, from, or concerning Ms. Ferrer in any manner in this action. So they're like, yo, okay, you want to call us an abuser? You want to call us harassing? You want to do this? You really want out? You want out? You don't want to answer our subpoena? Okay, fine, you're out. But then you're out for Blake Lively too. Get out of here. We don't want you. See yourself to the door. Shut it on your way out. That's what they're like. Bye. You don't want in this thing? Okay, good riddance. We don't need bye, but then Blake can't use you either. Okay, so you can't have it both ways. You can't be cooperating with her and then us also trying to say that we're harassing you for serving you the same subpoena she did. It's crazy. Finally, to the extent that Ms. Ferrer believes that the Wayfarer subpoena is overbroad, docket 666, which can we take a second to just note that Ms. Isabela Ferrer's docket is 666? Whew, hallelujah. Okay. That is just already a jinx. That's bad luck. That is the universe telling us a little bit something. Okay. That was So they're saying that she said it's overbroad or otherwise objectionable, which it is not. She's entitled to serve formal objections thereto once the service issue has been resolved. A point that dispels any ludicrous notion of a quid pro quo in connection with the subpoena. And then it does say in the footnote, in inflammatory fashion, the opposition uses the word harass over a dozen times. I told y'all they were trying to use trigger words, buzzwords, trying to get about it, trying to like, if you hear that word so many times, then you're going to believe it. They used it over a dozen times. For the reasons set forth above, as well as those contained in the Wayfarer party's initial papers, the Wayfarer party's motion to serve Ms. Ferrer via alternate means for the pendency in this action should be granted. Let me know in the comments if you think that this should be granted or denied, but I already know y'all are like, that letter was nuts, of course it should be granted. Oh, and they are just getting fired up because the way they are not playing about Brian Freeman, no. So this letter was also filed very late last night, and this is in opposition to Blake Lively's motion for cross sanctions against Brian Freeman. Oh gosh. Okay, here we go. It is 23 pages. I've gone through it and it is juicy, good, and they are not messing around. In her latest effort to curtail opposing counsel Brian Freeman's speech and chill his ability to effectively defend his clients, plaintiff Blake Lively now seeks a laundry list of sanctions under Rule 3.6 of the New York Rules of Professional Conduct. A lawyer has a right, indeed an obligation, to defend his or her client, even in the press. Ms. Lively nevertheless insists that Mr. Freeman was the architect of a far-reaching scheme to smear Ms. Lively. Ms. Lively points to 10 statements in which Mr. Freeman questioned the validity of Ms. Lively's claims, addressed the possibility that Ms. Lively would continue her deposition, which she did, and referred to Ms. Lively as a Hollywood elite, which of course she is, having worked her whole career to become. Ms. Lively contends that Rule 3.6 applies because Mr. Freeman's statements challenge her character, credibility, or reputation. Ms. Lively misconstrues Rule 3.6, which does not bar public statements by counsel, even statements critical of an opposing party. Rule 3.6 bars only those statements that create a substantial likelihood of materially prejudicing an adjudicative proceeding in the matter. This is not the case. Nevertheless, Ms. Lively grosses over the threshold requirement for Rule 3.6 sanctions, which is that the negative publicity, which has the likelihood of prejudicing the proceedings. Ms. Lively deftly sidesteps this requirement with the single conclusory statement that this court should impose sanctions here because Mr. Freeman's statements pose a significant risk of tainting the jury pool with deceptive, corrosive, and untrue statements cloaked with an illusion of lawyerly integrity. Ms. Lively does not argue, much less provide any evidence, that Mr. Freeman's statements are likely to taint the jury. Ms. Lively does not enlighten on the significant risk or explain how comments made 8 to 11 months prior to trial could pose a significant risk of materially prejudicing the jury, particularly here where the jury pool consists of literally millions of residents in the New York metropolitan area. Instead of enlightening on the risk of potential prejudice, Ms. Lively myopically focuses on the second part of the analysis, namely whether Mr. Freeman's comments relate to Ms. Lively's credibility, character, or reputation, which may ordinarily create a prejudice. An analysis that is unnecessary absent a showing of the substantial risk of materially prejudicing the adjudicative process. Moreover, even assuming that Ms. Lively's silence is sufficient to establish it, flowing from a statement made by Mr. Freeman, the cited statements fall under Rule 3.6's explicit exceptions, including, among others, the exception for statements a reasonable lawyer would believe are required to protect a client from the substantial prejudicial effect of recent publicity not initiated by the lawyer or the lawyer's client, which is necessary to mitigate the recent adverse publicity. Ms. Lively similarly ignores that she has a highly divisive figure long before Mr. Freeman came on the scene. Discord on the It Ends With Us set attracted media attention while on the film. It was still in production. Y'all remember when I went into that deep dive about the smear campaign? Yes, there was a lot of hate already in pre-production, in casting, in everything. It didn't just like come out of nowhere. It was already happening. Public and media interest spiked when Miss Lively encouraged cast and crew members to defriend or unfollow Mr. Baldoni on social media, froze Mr. Baldoni out of the marketing campaign for the film he produced, directed and starred in, and banished him and his family to the basement at the film's premiere in August 2024, long before Mr. Freeman was engaged in late December of 2024. Ms. Lively herself poured fuel on the fire when she and or her counsel provided a draft of her CRD complaint to the New York Times before it was filed. Ms. Lively's post-litigation conduct has nothing to endear her to the public, the press, or content creators. A recent barrage of subpoenas has angered and alienated those already critical of Ms. Lively, forcing a number of them to seek this court's intervention. She's doing it herself. Brian Freeman doesn't have to talk to nobody. Like, it's already happening from her own actions. 107 subpoenas on content creators is nuts, considering that they only named 4 of them having ever spoken to or given statements to 4, and she still subpoenaed 107, mostly women. Blissfully tone deaf to her own conduct. I love that. Blissfully tone deaf to her own conduct. Miss Lively is only unwilling to accept that her own celebrity and actions have generated the media frenzy she now complains of and the weight of negative publicity against her. She conveniently ignores that she and her counsel have been less than shy about publicly bashing Mr. Freeman and the Wayfarer defendants in the press. Nevertheless, Ms. Lively seeks monetary sanction, attorney fees, a reprimand, and revocation of Mr. Freeman's pro-hack vice admission for statements primarily relating to whether Ms. Lively would appear at deposition and her falsity of her claims. In short, as explained below, Rule 3.6 does not, as Ms. Lively urges, render any public statement by a lawyer sanctionable. In other words, ordinarily does not translate to absolutely, and the fact that a statement may relate to a party's character, credibility, or reputation does not abrogate the requirement that there is a substantial risk of material prejudice to the adjudicative proceeding. As elaborated, what? Oh my gosh, sometimes my brain works faster than my mouth. As elaborated. My gosh, let's get there, guys. As elaborated below, Ms. Lively's motion should be denied because 1, Ms. Lively fails to show that Mr. Freeman's statements raise a substantial risk of materially prejudicing the jury, and 2, the statements identified by Ms. Lively fall into Rule 3.6 express exceptions for statements concerning the claim, offense or defense, information in a public record, scheduling matters, and most importantly, statements that a reasonable lawyer would believe is required to protect a client from the substantial prejudicial effect of recent publicity not initiated by the lawyer or the lawyer's client to mitigate the recent adverse publicity. Factual and procedural background. I love this sentence. I love this sentence. Miss Lively is a celebrity who, for whatever reason, has long been a magnet for media attention. Miss Lively is a celebrity who, for whatever reason that nobody can even think of, because why is she famous anyway? Is it just for Gossip Girl 20 years ago, or is it because of Ryan Reynolds? But like, who freaking knows? But she is a magnet for media attention. By August 2024, roughly the time when the film was released, the rumor mill about troubles on set were already receiving significant media attention, and both sides had retained public relations consultants. Public scrutiny of Miss Lively's conduct accelerated after she urged her followers to defriend or unfollow Justin Baldoni on social media, froze Baldoni out of the marketing campaign for his film he produced, directed, and starred in, and banished Mr. Baldoni and his family to the basement during the film's premiere. Ms. Lively points to a chart showing an increase in negative publicity beginning in early August 2024 and spiking on August 9th, the day the film was released. A natural point for a spike in public comment. Yeah, of course you're going to have a spike that day. That was the premiere. Like, what did you think? That day was just going to be quiet. And that was the day that she let everyone know that Ryan, her husband, is a scab and wrote the rooftop scene and took the writing over from a woman. Get out of here. Miss Lively further fueled the already brewing firestorm by leaking her CRD complaint to the New York Times in advance of its December 2024 filing. I love that. She fueled the already brewing firestorm. The complaint contains sensationalized allegations of sexual abuse and misconduct on the set of the film. As part of Miss Lively's very concerted efforts to shape the public narrative and sway potential jurors, Miss Lively and her counsel have routinely exploited the media to advance their version of the facts. Miss Lively's efforts to influence public opinion, primarily through her counsel, continues unabated. Nevertheless, Miss Lively contends that the Wayfarer parties and Brian Freeman's efforts to counter the hurricane of negative publicity are a smear campaign, which violates Rule 3.6. Miss Lively's relentless campaign against Brian Freeman. She has been nonstop against Brian Freeman. I mean, even from the beginning when she said that she didn't even want him to depose her, her counsel has been all over Brian Freeman, and now we know why. There is a long list of reasons why she does not like Brian Freeman, and I think Isabela Ferrer's lawyer is one of them. After the film's release, this motion is the latest salvo in Miss Lively's relentless war against Mr. Freeman. It comes on the heels of a string of motions calculated to intimidate counsel and curb Mr. Freeman's statements in defense of his clients, including a Rule 11 sanctions motion against the Wayfarer parties and their counsel, and a subpoena directed to Mr. Freeman's law firm seeking, among other things, all communications and agreements with content providers from July 2024 to the present. But this is not all. Miss Lively sought to bar Mr. Freeman from taking Miss Lively's deposition and has repeatedly added gratuitous swipes at Mr. Freeman in a string of motions unrelated to the negative publicity which Miss Lively alleges smears her. Then it says on August 8th, the court wisely issued a long overdue order advising all individuals filing documents in this case not to make submissions using language that is disrespectful to the parties, their counsel, or the court. The Wayfarer parties are hopeful that all parties will comply with this order and cease from the incessant personal attacks on counsel. Right, it goes both ways, sweetheart. And now and even the things that she's saying, like the times that Brian Freeman spoke on her, isn't even when she's saying the smear campaign started. Like they're saying, like she's saying it started in August. You're bringing up things I said in 2025. What are you talking about? So then they bring up all of the 10 things that, Brian Freeman talked to the press about. So they're all here, all of the things, which let's just say he hasn't talked to the press since June 11th. And she filed this letter in August. A couple months behind there, girl. Miss Lively's motion should be denied. Rule 3.6 is not an absolute bar to a lawyer's statement to the press. The first and fatal flaw to Miss Lively's motion in her failure to show that Mr. Freeman's statement will have a substantial likelihood of materially prejudicing the jury. Miss Lively fails to present any evidence of substantial likelihood of doing just that. Miss Lively does not even attempt to make this critical showing, asserting only a single conclusory statement that the court should impose sanctions against Mr. Freeman. Miss Lively relies primarily on this one case, but then they say that the case that she's citing isn't even for sanctions like that from the court. Like the sanctions under Rule 3.6 for that lawyer's statement to the press. Rather, plaintiff's counsel was sanctioned under Rule 37B, so not even Rule 3.6 of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure for serial abuse of the discovery, including a failure to comply with the court's order to timely serve discovery responses and for failing to diligently prosecute the case. There's a footnote here as well that says, Miss Lively does not argue that Mr. Freeman's statements published evidence that he should reasonably have known was inadmissible. Indeed, at this early juncture, without only a single deposition completed, any determination on admissibility is premature. So what he's saying, he fully believes from his clients, and there's no proof to state otherwise that isn't true. Sanctions, however, were not, as Miss Lively urges, imposed for counsel's general strategy to prosecute this action through the media, but for a failure to comply with the discovery order. Miss Lively also cites a second case. However, that Southern District of Georgia rule is different from New York's versions of Rule 3.6 in two significant ways. First, the Southern District of Georgia rule permits sanctions where a lawyer's public statements raise a reasonable likelihood that such dissemination will interfere with a fair trial or otherwise prejudice the due administration of justice. Second, the Southern District of Georgia rule does not provide the exception which are incorporated into the New York rule and apply here. Then they go over other things that she cited that they just are like, nope, not good enough, not good. The court found nonsensical the notion that statements made to a reporter in 2022 could possibly manipulate or impact a future jury for the retrial. The court pointed to the defendant's failure to provide any support, such as an expert opinion showing that overwhelming adverse media attention had made it impossible to find an impartial jury. So he's saying that, like, statements I made in 2025 aren't going to affect a jury pool in 2026. And we're in New York. Statements made over a year before trial were too remote to show a substantial likelihood of prejudicing the jury pool. Here, Mr. Freeman's statements were made between 9 and 11 months before the scheduled trial date. The jury pool, which draws from the entire New York metropolitan area, dwarfs the exceedingly large jury pool in the Sherrod case. Indeed, the notion that the entire jury pool is somehow riveted to Miss Lively's claims and this spat between two actors is nonsensical, as is the notion that an impartial jury cannot be seated. Mr. Freeman's statements fall within Rule 3.6 express exceptions, even assuming that the court finds that any of the enumerated statements pose a substantial risk of materially tainting the jury. Mr. Freeman's statements are not prohibited by a Rule 3.6, but are subject to its exceptions. Rule 3.6 does not apply to statements asserted without elaboration concerning the claim, offense, or defense information contained in a public record, or the scheduling or result of any step in litigation, or to a statement that a reasonable lawyer would believe is required to protect a client from the substantial prejudicial effect of recent publicity not initiated by the lawyer or the lawyer's client to mitigate the recent adverse publicity. So they're just saying, like, they were coming in defense of Brian of the Wayfarer people, as a good lawyer would. I mean, you, like, the media and the frenzy was so crazy. What he did was, like, you know, talk to the press, just like what Blake Lively's people were doing. Mr. Freeman's statements were reasonably required to protect the Wayfarer parties by countering the substantial prejudicial effect or recent publicity initiated by Miss Lively and her counsel. There it is, yet again. They were on the defense, just like they were in August, just like they were the entire time. Blake Lively was the one that was doing a smear campaign against the Wayfarer people and against Justin Baldoni. There is proof. There is proof of that, even though she would like to say in her CRD complaint that I told Leslie Sloan not to talk to anyone. We never said a word. We never said a word. There's text from the publications themselves with Leslie Sloan. Like, how can you just so blatantly lie? Mr. Freeman's statements were not made in a vacuum. Put another way, nothing in Rule 3.6 divests the lawyer of his or her right to defend against adverse publicity promulgated by an opposing party or his or her counsel. In fact, this court has recognized a lawyer's right to speak out. So they're saying in the hearing on July 25th, the court recognized that this is a high-profile case and you can talk about it. And he even says, so if Miss Garofalo leaves this courtroom and gives her spin on what I've said or what you've said or what she said, that would be picked up. If it was Mr. Freeman who was here and he gave his spin, that would be picked up. Clients do have a right to have their attorneys speak to members of the press, particularly in a high-profile case, and give their interpretation. The public has an interest in that also. I wouldn't begrudge you speaking to members of the press, and I'm not going to begrudge Miss Garofalo doing that. That comes from Judge Lyman himself. There can be no serious dispute that Lively and her lawyer are sometimes euphemistically called spokespersons, right? Because it's not like, you know, when they talk to people and TMZ and the Hollywood Reporter and the New York Times, it's always spokespersons for Lively, have disseminated a barrage of negative statements impugning Mr. Baldoni and the Wayfarer defendants' credibility, character, or reputation by alleging, among other things, that Justin Baldoni lied about his long-standing commitment to women's rights and betrayed victims of sexual abuse. For instance, look at all of the things that they have said to the press. Look at that. And there's more. Ms. Lively and her counsel also made efforts through widely disseminated media statements to alienate and sway potential jurors who might be among Taylor Swift's millions of fans against Mr. Baldoni and the Wayfarer parties, which they did. Remember when they were riding so hard for Taylor Swift, not knowing that Taylor Swift was like, I'm done forever. I'm out of here. No, thank you, Blake. You're too much. Yeah, she thought that they were still going to be like besties if she can get them out of this. Wasn't the case. However, they were crazy about that. Like, they were going on it saying that Justin Baldoni was harassing Taylor Swift. They're not going to stand for it. Da 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 da. Look at the times that they spoke. I mean, come on. Double the amount, I would say, that Brian Freeman ever spoke. Lively's spokespeople have spoken to the press. Rule 3.6 does not require Mr. Freeman to stand idly by while Ms. Lively and her counsel conduct a transparent campaign to savage Mr. Baldoni, the Wayfarer defendants, and their counsel. To the contrary, the express language makes it inapplicable to statements that a reasonable lawyer would believe is required to protect a client from the substantial prejudicial effect of recent publicity not initiated by the lawyer or the lawyer's client. Ms. Lively conveniently fails to explain how these public statements differ from Mr. Freeman's. Right. You're doing it. They can't make a statement either. And this is what I've been saying the whole time. Her lawyers were on CNN, but Brian Freeman can't go on Megyn Kelly, which is like, what? Are we being serious? In fact, they are not. Like the statements Lively complains of, they challenge defendants' truthfulness, attack Mr. Baldoni's character by repeatedly saying that his work to protect women was a fraud, and in fact, he's a typical serial sex abuser, and defendants are bullies. Unlike Mr. Freeman's statements, those from Ms. Lively's counsel barely conceal their intent to taint the jury pool, particularly the millions of fans who follow and support Taylor Swift. Succinctly put, if Mr. Freeman's statements are sanctionable, so are those of Lively's counsel. In short, the persistent attack on the Wayfarer defendants placed Mr. Freeman's statement squarely into Rule 3.6 exceptions for public statements. Rule 3.6 does not apply to statements asserted without elaboration concerning the claim, offense, or defense of Ms. Lively's deposition, the amended complaint, and the media backlash against Ms. Lively. The court should reject the request to effectively disqualify Mr. Freeman by revoking his pro-hack vice admission. Apparently, no punishment for a perceived slight would be too draconian for Ms. Lively. Apparently, no punishment for a perceived slight would be too draconian for Miss Lively. Miss Khaleesi, the mother of dragons, in her extended quest to permanently silence Mr. Freeman, in addition to monetary sanctions, attorney fees, and a reprimand, Miss Lively seeks to have the court revoke Mr. Freeman's pro-vac heist status, effectively disqualifying him as the Wayfarer defendant's counsel. The court explained that as such a remedy would deny the plaintiffs their right to counsel of their choice. Although this right is not absolute, it is a valued right, and a restriction can be carefully scrutinized. The court should decline to exercise its power to sanction Mr. Freeman. Finally, implicitly recognizing shortcomings in its quest for Rule 3.6 sanctions, Ms. Lively alternatively asked the court to exercise its inherent power to sanction opposing counsel. The counsel should decline to do so. Sanctions under the court's inherent power require a showing of bad faith. Ms. Lively has not shown the bad faith conduct required for sanctions under the court's inherent power. Mr. Freeman's statements were made to counter the deluge of negative publicity spawned by Ms. Lively and her counsel as expressly permitted by Rule 3.6 conduct, which is permitted by Rule 3.6 or falls into one of its express exceptions, does not rise to the level of bad faith required for sanctions under the court's inherent power. Conclusion. For the foregoing reasons, Mr. Freeman and the Wayfarer defendants respectfully request that the court enter an order denying Ms. Lively's motions for sanctions. Okay, Aline Garofalo and Kevin Fritz, I see you. And it should be noted as well that in Nevada, Blake Lively and her counsel has come back against Perez Hilton to either not quash the motion for the subpoena and order to transfer it to the Southern District of New York. And in tomorrow's video, I will get to it because it is pretty long and I want to kind of save time in this video. But it has been filed and I'm sure he's going to be talking about it today because it's juicy. So that's it. We'll see what the judge comes back with from these letters. I mean, it makes perfect sense to me. And I said it when Lively filed that letter for sanctions stuff. I was like, wait a second, your counsel has talked to the press more than the Wayfarer people. We've barely seen Brian Freeman for months now. Your people are talking to them all the time. There's always sources. There's always spokespeople. Your lawyers went on freaking CNN, went on TMZ, went on all of these shows. So it's like, what? It doesn't make sense. And Isabela Ferrer, I already knew that was like the easiest clapback ever because like that whole letter was just... I still have secondhand embarrassment for her and her attorney because that thing was riddled in error. And first of all, like someone and also mentioned in a comment, and I screenshotted, I'm going to go over it Friday because it really caught my attention. But they said that the reason why they didn't keep writing "it ends with us," it ends was like subliminal messaging, maybe written by like Ryan Reynolds. Who knows? There's lots of theories out there, but like, yeah, to always put like it ends was very interesting. And I had to be a choice because as your lawyer, how do you not know what the title of the movie is? As your lawyer, how do you not know how to spell Wayfarer? You know, and it was a blatant attack on Justin. I called that yesterday straight out. So these are the responses. We'll see what happens if the judge comes back with anything. Oh my gosh, my eyes are so dry and itchy. This happens like every 6 months. I don't know what it is, but anywho, some very exciting news. The members only channel will be operating this week. It is only going to be $3.99 a month. What's going to happen is on Tuesdays, there'll be a video of like story time or something that I'm going through, or living in your power, or, you know, more of like life and getting through, and an abundant mindset and motivation and inspiration with stories from my life. They'll be funny, cheeky, you know, kind of sometimes not, maybe. That will be on Tuesdays. And then on Thursdays, the videos will be to set goals and goal setting. So this Thursday, I'm starting with my own goal of producing my next short film. So every Thursday, we're going to have a check-in together and just work on goal setting. And yeah, so if you have any goals, we can just do it together. Obviously, my goals are different from your goals, but I think to have like an accountability kind of person or group to kind of go to, share your ideas, track your progress, and really break it down to like, maybe it's like this big goal you have. How can we work in reverse to every week make sure that we're doing the steps to get there? So that's a members channel coming to you this week. I'm very excited to launch it and share just like different sides of me than, you know, what we do here with like It Ends With Us and then my movie reviews and stuff like that. So I'm very excited because like my goal in life is to like empower, inspire, and entertain. So I just love that I get to do that here, and that's going to be a whole other thing. I'm very excited. And today we've released Beware the Manhunter, a short film that I produced the year before last, starring myself as well as Jim Watson from The Transplant. This whole movie was done pretty much improv. We kind of had a tentative script. I was working with the DP, the director of photography, and we wanted to shoot a movie together, and we were like looking at things, and then all of a sudden a location popped up, and we were like, oh my god, there's a location next Saturday. I think it gave us like 8 days or something to produce this movie, and we just got the location, got the crew, got the cast, and showed up and shot something, and it did really well in film festivals. So that's out now. I'll put the link down below. Yeah, go check it out. It's only a 7-minute film, and yeah, I thought it was pretty good for like a little improv day on set. So yeah, check those things out, and I'm very excited to continue this journey with you. So I hope you're having the best day. I hope you can join me in the member section when it's up and running. And yeah, I have a date tonight first date too, so we'll see what happens there. I'm just excited to go out, have some food, meet a new person. Who knows what could happen? Maybe I'll never talk to them again. Maybe I will. Who knows? Life is all about saying yes and going with it, you know? But I'll be back here tomorrow for Wednesday, hump day. We'll see if anything else is in the courts. And yeah, I hope you're having the best day. Drop your comments. Let me know if you think the judge is going to come back, what's going to happen, what the next moves are, what you're thinking. Just anything, okay? I'm here for it. Have the best day. I'll talk to you tomorrow. I love you. Bye.